Transmite en su canal de frecuencia modulada e estereofónica multiplex La Voz Radio, desde New Haven, Connecticut, al mundo.
Ok, muy buenos días, queridos oyentes. Muy buenos días, colega.
Buenos días. Ya, ¿verdad? Como que llegó la prima, llegó el fall y está como ya más frío allá afuera. Más frío, ¿verdad?
Sí. Bien, recuerden, señores, que este programa se transmite a través de la WNHH 103.5 FM, La Voz Hispana Radio, Facebook, YouTube e Instagram, y está auspiciado por
New Haven Health.
Por New Haven. Bueno, hoy tenemos muy interesante, un par de invitados muy interesantes en esta edición, en esta otra edición de Hechos y Opiniones. Primeramente, en el primer segmento del programa, tenemos la presencia del jefe de la policía de New Haven, Karl
Jacobson.
Buenos días.
Bueno.
Habla falló un poquito. Chief.
Chief, jefe. En los últimos tiempos se están produciendo muchos hechos de violencia aislados aquí en New Haven, incluyendo muerte de personas, tiroteos. Recientemente hubo un muerto de parte de mano de la policía, y creo que en Fairhaven en esta misma semana se produjo otro tiroteo, y no sé, hubo muerto un joven.
Un joven murió,
sí. Un joven murió. Frente a todo esto, su departamento, ¿qué está haciendo? ¿Cuál es la respuesta que está dando la policía a toda esta ola de violencia en la ciudad?
So, Chief, in New Haven lately, we've seen an uptick in gun violence in the community. Just recently, there was in Fairhaven a young man that I think there was in a shooting and died as a consequence of that. And also you have the incident where police responded to an individual at the car wash where the individual pulled out a gun, fired to police, and unfortunately there was that confrontation, and the police officers had to respond. So we're seeing isolated throughout the city, specific areas, we see that uptick in gun violence. Can you talk a little bit about what the department is doing to address these concerns?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you two today. So it is troubling. Overall, we look at the data, right? And overall, we're at about the same amount of shootings as last year, and we are way less in homicides. We just had our 9th homicide, that young man, which is very tragic. But last year at this time, we had 19 homicides. So we're making some progress, right? But we are seeing this uptick, and we saw the police-involved shooting, which is very frightening to people. But what we do in response is really do that community outreach. After the officer-involved shooting, we did a lot of stuff in the community. We're going to continue to have listening sessions and do stuff with community members. I'm working with the clergy in the New Hallville section to do a lot of outreach on that shooting specifically. But we're also putting out some more patrols. We just graduated a bicycle academy, so getting back to those roots of community policing, because I truly believe in that. If we can put walking beats out and bicycle beats out, these are the things that are such a deterrent to the people that are committing these crimes, but also they are that bridge between the community and the people that want us out there, and being able to get information and moving forward.
Solo está hablando es que esto es un poquito preocupante, ¿verdad? Para la comunidad. Pero mientras ellos están analizando la data, ¿verdad? Comparando lo que está pasando en este año y el año anterior, vamos mirando los números, aunque estamos viendo estos incidentes, pero los números han bajado. Cuando tú miras comparado al año anterior, lo que viene siendo los homicidios El año pasado estaba 19, este año está mucho más menos. So, él dice que lo que ellos, como ellos están tratando esta situación es que están haciendo un acercamiento a la comunidad, teniendo unas sesiones donde traen a la comunidad para que la comunidad hable de sus opiniones, ellos cogen esa información y esto está pasando en el vecindario de New Hopeville. También ellos tienen una clase nueva que va a entrar degradante para el departamento de policía, tienen una unidad que van a estar en bicicleta y él quiere también tratar de traer los oficiales que estén caminando los vecindarios, ¿verdad? Porque eso ayuda a que la comunidad tenga esa relación y ese acercamiento con el departamento de policía y trabajando colaborativamente entre la comunidad y el departamento, pues eso va a ayudar a trabajar en estos incidentes que están pasando.
En algunas áreas o algunas personas dicen que la policía no está respondiendo con la rapidez que debía responder a esta hora, a estos crímenes, e incluso recientemente en el downtown hubo un grupo de jóvenes en vehículos disparando y la policía estaba ahí y no reaccionó ante eso. Y es una queja que hay, que la rapidez y la de la respuesta es muy lenta y a veces ni se acercan al área donde se produce el incidente.
So, Chief, so the question is, he says that there has been some community concerns in regards to the response time of officers, where it's a slower response than normally used to be. He points out to a specific incident right here in downtown office where I believe there was some youth in a vehicle, and based on his recollection, they were shooting or something of that nature. But then there was an officer nearby, and the response was very slow. If you can talk a little bit about, is that something that is happening consistently, or is that something that may be an isolated incident? But what would be the response to that, Chief?
So we're short. We're about 87 officers short, and I'm not going to make. That's not my excuse, because there's no excuse for delayed response times. We're doing the best we can. You might have seen an officer parked somewhere else, like for court or something, and wasn't in the loop with the response because they might have been working a different district. What we need to get better at is our communication with dispatch. We have a new director up there, Joseph Vitale. He's doing a lot better. Because remember, you call the police, you don't talk to the police. You talk to the dispatchers. And then they rank what is important by different standards. So I'll get calls, hey, police never came. I'll research it, and I'll realize they were never dispatched. But in this case, if there was something to do with firearms, we should have been dispatched. But I think it's more of a perception thing. Like, we are taking longer. We're going to get better at that. I have 28 people in different academies throughout the state. I have 9 people in our own academy. So we're rebuilding those ranks. Just yesterday, the mayor and I swore in 4 new cadets going to the Hartford Academy, and we swore in 5 new sergeants, which it's crucial. We have to continue to make that movement, so I have the supervisors making sure the officers do the right things. But the bottom line is, there's no excuse for poor response time. All of the situations that I get called on, we check up on and we find out why. And I would suggest for the community, if you are having short response times, even call the chief's office. My number is 946-6333, and leave us a message and leave us an incident and a date so we can look into it. We do have to get better at that, though. I totally agree.
Él dice que el departamento está corto de oficiales, 87 oficiales cortos, y él dice eso no es una excusa para responder tarde. Hay que mejorar en la manera que ellos responden. Pero hay que entender un poquito que cuando ese incidente pasa, quien envía al oficial es el despachador. El que está cogiendo la llamada, ¿verdad? Cuando uno llama al 911 y despacha al policía a la situación. Ellos tienen la responsabilidad de catalogar cuál es la importancia de la emergencia, y así es que responden. Pero él dice que ha trabajado está trabajando entrenando nuevos oficiales. Recientemente se graduaron 5 que van para Hartford y un par de y cinco nuevos sargentos y 4 cadetes nuevos. Que trayendo más oficiales al departamento, eso va a mejorar la respuesta que hay. Y él dice, vuelve a repetir otra vez, que eso no es ninguna excusa, sí hay que trabajar a mejorar en ese aspecto, pero si hay algún incidente donde la policía no está respondiendo, el jefe de la policía dijo que se puede llamar ahí directamente, yo da el número de teléfono, que es 203-946-4663.
6663, sorry.
6663. So, el número es 203-946-6663. Si en un caso que no ven que no están respondiendo rápidamente, pues pueden llamar a ese número, se comunican y pueden conseguirlo directamente.
Sí, hay quejas de comerciantes, fundamentalmente en el área de Fairhaven, que están enfrentando el problema de que los traficantes y vendedores de droga se mantienen mucho tiempo frente a su negocio y la policía no llega, no aparece, no hay patrulla, no hay quien controle a esta gente, o sea, frente a su negocio. Entonces, esa es una queja frente a eso, que ellos están haciendo.
So, Chief, in Fairhaven specifically, we've been getting a lot of complaints from the business owners that they're seeing a lot of individuals who are loitering around their businesses, and that has impeded even customers from coming into the businesses. That has been a constant issue. And what is the response from the department to address that? Just to improve, right? That's a corridor where people come in and shop, they come with their families, but right now having these individuals loitering has created a dynamic that is not welcoming to people to the area. What is the department doing or plan to do to address that specific issue?
So I totally agree, and we sat down with business owners on Grand Avenue, I would say about 3 or 4 months ago, and we put a periodic walking beat in that area, and that's been helping a little bit. But part of the problem is we weren't addressing trespassing, loitering, in the ways we used to address it back in the day when we had more officers and when courts really were concerned about that. So myself and the mayor have met with Jack Doyle, the chief state's attorney. We're going to be meeting with the judges because what we're going to do is set up a protocol for that. So, the mayor started Compass, and I'm all for it. And Compass has been able to take clear officers from scenes, do things that officers didn't have the time to do, but also don't have the skills to do, like dealing with homelessness and people with drug addiction. We were only a quick Band-Aid or an arrest, and that wasn't the right way to go, right? And as a society, we didn't want that. So with Compass, we're setting up a protocol, which we'll be rolling out soon, where the first interaction with the people loitering will be Compass and an officer. The second interaction, and we're going to document that this person, he's been there, he's been offered services. Second interaction is going to be an infraction or a summons. Third interaction potentially could be an arrest where they're sent to Union. And we're going to work with the judges so that these individuals who have 8, 9, 10 of these interactions and are failing to not move, or there's instances I've heard about where people are urinating in front of businesses, and we really want to stop that. So we've been working on it. We've been working with the business owners, but we're gonna work with the courts as well. And we're gonna, I don't want to say get back to the old days. I want to say move forward, offer those services. But if you don't move, we got to do something. So we're going to get back to that. We're going to have more officers out there to help enforce that, and we're going to start giving infractions, summons, and arrests.
So, él está de acuerdo con lo que tú estás, con la pregunta. Él dice que él se ha reunido con los negociantes también para tener discusiones de estas situaciones que están pasando. Ahora ellos implementaron un grupo de oficiales que están caminando al frente de los vecindarios. So, eso va a ayudar con el proceso. También, porque el asunto es de estas personas que se paran frente a los negocios, no se quieren mover, y eso es una situación que ellos están trabajando. También están trabajando directamente con Jack Doyle, que es el abogado general del estado, ¿verdad? para trabajar en un protocolo donde puedan atender a estas situaciones mejor. Él está hablando que hay un programa en la ciudad que se llama Compass. Compass es un programa que son unos individuos que ayudan a esa persona en proveerle servicios, si es servicios de salud mental, de adicción. Y ahora lo que el protocolo va a hacer es enviar a un oficial con un personal de Compass para hablar con el individuo. La primera interacción va a ser, mira, tenemos estos servicios, tú no puedes estar aquí parado, tienes que moverte, y esa va a ser la primera. La segunda va a ser una infracción o un ticket que le van a dar a la persona, porque ya te lo han dicho una vez, la segunda vez te van a dar un ticket. La tercera va a ser un arresto. Ellos van a trabajar con la persona. Él dice, no quiero ir, no es que estoy yendo para atrás, sino que vamos a mejorar y seguir hacia adelante. Entonces, trabajar también con el juez, ¿verdad? Porque esto es una combinación no solamente de departamento, pero también tiene que ver los jueces, que son los que imponen la sentencia. Él dice que van a poner también en el futuro más oficiales en la área. Con esa estrategia van a tratar de mejorar un poco la situación allá en Fairhaven. Yep. So, Chief, community policing was a model that started with Chief, was it Pastor?
Pastor, yes.
Which unfortunately passed away. Police community, different chiefs have different styles of management. And there was at one point even in New Haven where community policing was not as active as it used to be. But now we're seeing that it is even more. Talk to us a little bit about what's your strategy in bringing back that community policing where police built that relationship with the community. They had the ability where they had to build that trust and were able to report what was really going on in the neighborhoods. Because as you know, a lot of people don't step up because they're afraid of retaliation or something might happen to them. But once you start building that relationship and that trust, you see that things start changing. Can you talk a little bit about your strategies of implementing that back?
Yeah, I mean, we've struggled a little at one point. The model that Pastor set up, and may rest in peace, and I even said it recently in The Independent, he's basically the father of community policing. He was way ahead of his time with his concepts. And what it is you have district managers, so each of our 10 police districts, everybody has their own top cop. They don't need to talk to the chief. They have their own top cop who's vested in that area, knows what's going on, knows the officers in the area. Along with that, every officer gets a cell phone. And what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm making sure they're doing it, is they have business cards with their cell phone on it, and they're passing out their numbers to community members. So community members, at times, if it's not a 911 or an emergency, can directly call their cop in their community, right? And then the third tier of that would be doing things like walking beats and bicycle beats, which have been challenging. I've only been able to do them on overtime, but I'm committed to this because I've seen the results. The other thing we're doing is all the district managers are required to have community, some kind of community, whether it be fundraiser, community event, once a month. So there'll be 10 different community events throughout the month in each policing area. So we're getting the community out to interact with us more. We had suspended it for a little while, but we also restarted ComStat, but ComStat's reimagined. We're only doing it twice a month. The second Thursday of each month is called Community ComStat, and we do that somewhere in the community. So prior months we've had it in the Hill area, we had it in New Hallville. Just this month we had it downtown in the Omni. Next month I believe we're gonna be going to Fairhaven, and we asked the community to come to that ComStat and talk to us. And then we kind of report on our statistics. And then the other ComStat is the traditional one at the police station, and that's the fourth Thursday of the month. And we've been pushing that out. And I think it's important to see that we're getting a lot of feedback from the community. I feel more than we have ever. And then also with that, our closure rates for shootings and homicides are up. So we have 9 homicides so far this year. 4 are closed by arrest, and we have 2 other warrants at the state's attorney's office that I'm pretty sure that they'll get signed as well. So we're looking at 6 out of 9 arrests and homicides, and we're not even done with the year yet, because normally that takes a long time. But that's because we got great community information. We're also using the camera system, and that's helping immensely. But we're seeing the community open up to us more. And I think that starts when, at the top, we're holding our officers accountable. You know, we had the unfortunate Randy Cox incident. I've been chief for 2 years and 3 months. I've put up 9 people to be fired. Some of them retired or resigned, but that's the most in a 2-year period. And I think the community sees that and sees that we're holding our officers accountable. And I hear it from the community all the time. We need to be accountable to you guys as well. And I'm really seeing that. And I'm very proud of that work our cops have done to bridge that gap.
So, él está hablando un poquito de... Yo le hice la pregunta, ¿verdad? Porque en New Haven, para los que no conocen, hay un modelo de departamento de la policía que se llama Community Policing. Y ese modelo es cómo interactúan con la comunidad directamente para establecer relaciones donde se haya confianza entre la comunidad y el oficial. Y ese modelo, pues, era bien famoso hace 10, 20 años atrás. Y depende de quién es el jefe de la policía, eso como que baja un poquito. Pero en este caso, él dice que él, pues, lo está trayendo eso para atrás, porque eso es importante para el vecindario. Los oficiales ahora, hay 10 distritos. De esos 10 distritos, los jefes de esos 10 distritos tienen celulares que se lo dan a la comunidad para que la comunidad se comuniquen directamente con ellos. No tienen que comunicarse directamente con el jefe de la policía, sino que tienen a alguien presente en el vecindario donde ellos pueden sentirse cómodos en hablar. Van a incrementar lo que se llama walking beat, los policías que están caminando y los que están en bicicleta para que hagan más visibilidad en la comunidad. Y él dice que esto es importante. También él le dio directiva a los jefes de esas áreas para tener un fundraiser en las comunidades una vez al mes para atraer a la gente de la comunidad a conocer el departamento, hacen eventos juntos. Sobre esto es como él está tratando para traer para atrás lo que se llama el community policing. Pero también está hablando de CompStat. CompStat es una reunión que hay son 2 veces al mes, donde reportan lo que está pasando en la ciudad a base de la data que consiguen. Y eso lo hacen en los vecindarios. Normalmente lo hacen los jueves. Se ha hecho ya en el Hill, New Hallville, en el Downtown, y el próximo va a ser en Fairhaven, donde van a hablar con la comunidad. La comunidad puede venir, hablar, dar quejas, pero también oír la información de la criminalidad que está pasando en la ciudad. Y también es muy importante porque ellos están recibiendo la preocupación de la comunidad para así ellos poder trabajar con esa área. Él dice que ahora mismo los homicidios que han habido, de 9 que han habido, ya han arrestado a 4 personas y hay 4 más que están ya a punto de trabajar para hacer los arrestos y todavía no se ha terminado el año. Él dice que quiere que sus policías sean responsables, ¿verdad? Que respondan apropiadamente a la comunidad. Y eso es lo que él está haciendo con este programa.
Me imagino que debe preocupar al departamento cuando él hablaba de estadística, pero a nivel nacional, New Haven se ubica entre una de las ciudades que definen como de la más peligrosa. ¿Qué piensa él sobre eso?
So, based on... He said he recently saw fue un artículo que viste, ¿verdad?
Sí, no, y los rangos, algunos.
De los rangos. Sí. So he says when New Haven is ranked at the national level, New Haven is up there when it comes to crime. Well, how do you respond to that one?
Well, I mean, back in 2011, when we had 38 homicides and we were 3rd in most violent crime, we're way better off than we were back then. But we need to get better. I mean, we have seen an increase in property crime. We've seen an increase in stolen cars, although in 2023 we peaked with stolen cars. It was terrible. We're actually two stolen cars, 200, stolen cars less than last year. So we're making progress with that, but it doesn't feel that way because we're seeing more of the activities of the Kia boys where they're driving around and hanging out the car. So it's more blatant than it used to be, but there's a lot less stolen cars. So I still think we have a lot of work to do on the property crime end. I think violent crime end, we're getting to a better place, but I don't want to go to any funerals, and this year I've been to 9, right? So We need to work harder, and we need to get those numbers down, and we need to attack some of the smaller problems that will lead to fixing some of the bigger problems, right? When you go after some of the smaller things and you clean up some areas of the city, and we mentioned it before, the drug dealing, the hanging out on corners. If they're not hanging out on corners, there's going to be less shooting. So this community policing approach with the beats on the ground will help lead to cleaning up the smaller problems like the loitering and the drug dealing, which also lead to better crime statistics and violent crime statistics.
So él dice que comparado al 2011, que habían 38 homicidios y New Haven era el tercer ciudad más violenta, hoy día estamos mucho mejor que en ese momento. Cuando tú miras a los carros que están robados, este año hay 200 menos casos. Él habla de los Kia Boys. ¿Te recuerdas que los carros Kia se lo están robando? Sí. Y eso, que tú estás viendo mucho de eso. Y él dice, tenemos que mejorar más. Todavía hay mucho trabajo que hacer. Pero cuando miramos a los homicidios violentos, eso ha bajado también en la ciudad. Él dice que ya ha ido a 9 funerales. No quiere ir a más ningún funeral. Tienen que trabajar más rápido y arreglar los problemas pequeños, porque si tú arreglas los problemas pequeños, pues eso ayuda con los problemas más grandes, como cuando lo están vendiendo droga o se la pasan en las esquinas. Pues mientras las personas no están en esas actividades, la criminalidad baja. Y él dice, pues esas son las cosas que está haciendo para mejorar.
Entonces, eso quiere decir que los niveles de crimen están más conectados con el tráfico de drogas que por otros factores.
Do you believe that the current crime situation is more related to drugs than anything else?
I think it's related to issues like homelessness, substance abuse. Our property crimes are sky high because we have a lot of people struggling with substance abuse. So they're breaking into cars, they're breaking into houses, they're stealing things. Then we have a disconnect with our youth, which we're trying to bridge through our police athletic league, which I just want to mention briefly. It used to just be a summer camp under a lot of chiefs moving up, and because of our staffing shortage, it was just a summer camp. Now we've expanded it to 10 different programs. Like we have boxing, and Chad Dawson is our lead instructor. The champion from New Haven is our lead instructor for boxing. We have jiu-jitsu. We have 2 different age levels of jiu-jitsu. It's been so big. We have cooking classes. We have flag football. We have basketball. So now the police officers are engaging with 700 kids a week, where before it was just a summer camp for about 100 kids. So I'm very proud of that program, and it's giving kids things to do. And the biggest part is we don't charge the families a dime. So a lot of our crime is driven by juveniles and the stolen cars and shootings, and then you have homelessness and substance abuse. So I think what the mayor's administration did was the right thing to do by engaging Compass and then finding more beds for homeless people and trying to really work on those issues, right? Because as police, all we can do is arrest or show up. But like we discussed earlier about, okay, now we're going to offer them services, but then if they're not doing and they're still engaging in this behavior, we have to hold them accountable as well. So I think it's a combination. And I think the direction the city's going in the way of services being provided and policing how we're going to do it is going to help get that problem down.
So él dice, no tanto que está relacionado con la droga, sino es más esas familias que están homeless, desamparados, que no tienen hogares, que están en drogas, que son los que están cometiendo los crímenes de propiedad, como entrar a las casas para robar, entrar a los vehículos para robar. Esas son las áreas que se están impactando. También hay una dinámica de los jóvenes que no están conectados, ¿verdad? Y en el departamento hacían un programa de verano con 100 niños una vez. Ahora tienen 10 programas en el departamento de policía donde los policías interactúan con los jóvenes. Actualmente están interactuando con 7 jóvenes semanalmente, y donde le dan programa de boxeo, que Chad Dawson, que es un boxeador famoso de New Haven, es el que ayuda con este programa. También dan clases de jiu-jitsu, de karate, de cómo cocinar, de fútbol, básquetbol, para así tener estos jóvenes para que no estén en las calles, ¿verdad? So, ellos están haciendo estos servicios. Él está de acuerdo con el alcalde, porque el alcalde implementó el programa de Campus y eso ha ayudado bastante, creando más cámaras para los jóvenes. Y también está hablando de los servicios de salud, que son los servicios muy importantes para tratar con esta situación. Ya estamos llegando al final del programa. We're almost close to this segment. We're almost to the end of the segment. I just have one last question, Chief. Tengo una última pregunta. The police department did not have a contract for, I believe, the last couple of years.
Since July 1st, 2022, when I became chief.
Wow, mira, de julio 22. My understanding that there's an agreement reached. If you can talk a little bit about that briefly, and my understanding is that you're going to get higher starting salaries that will attract and retain officers in New Haven, because New Haven was as competitive as other municipalities. But I think this contract will bring New Haven in line with other municipalities. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah. The union body voted yesterday on it and voted to move forward. Now we just need the approval of the alders. And I want to thank the union staff and the mayor's office. It took a long time, but they worked hard. It's very important to stay competitive. This is a business too, right? Law enforcement's a business. Mm-hmm. We have a smaller pool of young people coming into it, and we need to attract them. And a lot of people were going to other police departments. The starting salary for someone going to the academy was $50,000. It's going to jump up to $70,000, and then at the end of this 6-year contract, a police officer in New Haven will make close to $100,000. I think they deserve it. They have a lot on their plate, but this for me is about getting the cops who are here what they need, but also getting them help. And I believe we'll be able to get them help. And being on your radio, I just want to shout out that we need more people that grew up in Fairhaven. We need more Hispanic officers on our police department. Now, we've done well with that. When I took over, we were 54% white male and 46% minority and female. Since my time here and through our hiring process and from retirements, now we're 54% minority and female and 46% white male. Now, I'm not saying either race does better. A good officer is a good officer. But I want people on the police department that reflect our community. And we've done well with that. The 4 people we hired yesterday, we had a Hispanic male, a Hispanic female, a black male, and a white guy. So we're really pushing for that diversity, but one story I have real quick. Girl from Fairhaven, very young, 21 years old. She was working at a local restaurant, and Chief Zanelli and I would go in every day and we'd say, "You should be a police officer. You're very good with people." And now she's one of our police officers, and she's doing a great job, and she's still living in Fairhaven. So those are the stories I want to be able to tell.
Usted está hablando que sí. La pregunta mía el Departamento de Policía no tenía un contrato, ¿verdad?, entre la ciudad y los oficiales desde que él se hizo jefe del Departamento de Policía. Pero llegaron a un acuerdo recientemente y ese acuerdo va a ir a la Junta de Asambleístas para aprobarlo. Él está agradeciendo al personal de las uniones, al personal del alcalde, por el trabajo de llegar a este acuerdo. Pero debemos de mirar el Departamento de Policía como un pequeño negocio, small business, para atraer, ¿verdad?, a las personas al departamento. Antes un oficial pesaba a 50,000, ahora van a pesar a 70,000. Y después de un par de años de servicio con el departamento, van a llegar a 100,000. Esas son las cosas que hay. Él quiere traer más oficiales de Fairhaven, que sean hispanos. Y él dice, no tiene que ver las razas si va a ser un policía malo. Yo creo que todos los policías son buenos. Pero eso ayuda para que se vea el departamento como se ve la ciudad. Ahora mismo contrataron a 4 oficiales, 3 de ellos son minoritarios y 1 es blanco. El departamento antes había 54 blancos y 46 que eran minoritarios. Ahora se ha cambiado a 56 minoritarios mujeres y 46 que son hombres. Y ahí concluimos.
No, pero al final, una aclaración. En cómo va la lucha, o sea, el departamento, su departamento, con relación al el tráfico de fentanilo en la ciudad, de la droga esta mortal. Han detenido, han arrestado a muchas personas por el tráfico de esta.
One last question, Chief. There's been like increase of trafficking of fentanyl into the city. How is that being addressed currently?
So we're working with our federal partners. Every 3 days a week in our police department, we have what's called an intel meeting. And in that intel meeting is the DEA, the FBI, the ATF, all of our federal partners, along with all of our divisions and we speak about everything. We speak about small problems that the district managers need to address, but we also speak about big problems like fentanyl. DEA just did a major takedown related to fentanyl. It was worked through New Haven officers, through New Haven contacts, and I applaud them. They're putting a lot of resources into fentanyl. We're also working with groups like Demand Zero and For Cameron about putting that knowledge out to the kids. Next week, with my federal partners and the U.S. Attorney, Vanessa Avery, we're speaking to middle school kids in New Haven about the dangers of fentanyl, the dangers of gun violence. And I really applaud those programs. It's not the old DARE program. I don't know if that program worked, but we still need to do two things. We need to enforce at the top and get these large quantities of fentanyl off the street, and we're doing that. And we also need to let these kids know you could take one little fingernail of fentanyl and die. You know what I mean? So I think it's about education, but also enforcement, and we're doing both of those.
So, él está hablando que él está trabajando con sus colegas a nivel federal para tratar esta situación. Ellos tienen lo que se llama un intel meeting, una reunión donde se reúnen el Departamento de Policía con diferentes departamentos federales, donde hablan sobre esto, y ahí se habla sobre el incremento de fentanyl. So, el jefe de la policía dice, eso es una que estamos trabajando, están trabajando con unos grupos como For Cameron, y también están yendo a las escuelas hablando con los jóvenes para hablar sobre el impacto del fentanyl, la violencia de droga en las comunidades.
Bien, hemos arribado al final del programa. Muchísimas gracias, Chief, Jefe, por su presencia en el programa y por honrarnos con su presencia en el programa.
Thank you, Chief, for being with us. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. I think our doors are open for anything that you need. If you need to reach out to the community, the radio station is available and at your disposal.
And thank you. It's an honor to be here. I love what you guys do, and thank you for what you do up at the state level.
Thank you, Chief.
You know, we can't do this without our support of the mayor, the alders, people, state reps like you, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you for being here. Muchas gracias. We're going to pause for a minute. We'll be right back with Congresswoman Jahana Hayes.
Desde nuestras cristalinas fuentes de agua hasta nuestras muy modernas instalaciones de tratamiento, el agua de Regional Water Authority ya está lista para beber en cuanto sale del grifo. Nuestra agua cumple o supera todas las normas estatales y federales y la analizamos todos los días. Regional Water Authority, agua buena para una vida sana. Puedes consultar los informes anuales sobre la calidad del agua. Están disponibles en español en rwater.com.
WNHH 103.5, la voz hispana de Connecticut.
Bueno,
Ya estamos de regreso, ¿no? Nuevamente, tal como lo habíamos prometido, vamos a tener el honor de recibir a nuestro programa.
A la congresista Jahana Hayes.
Del Distrito número 5, ¿no?
Del Distrito número 5, exactamente, que está aquí hoy día con nosotros. Y empezamos.
Sí.
Vamos a empezar esto.
Bienvenida, No, you know.
Good morning. How are you, Congresswoman?
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you with us this
good.
morning.
Good morning. Okay.
So, Congresswoman, so you've been in office now. This is what, your
Third
second or
term.
third term. Este es su tercer término como congresista. And now, talk to us a little bit about Congress currently right now. Are you still in session right now? You're all in break for now, right?
Yes, so right now, we ended on September 30th with the vote to fund the government, and we are home for the month of October in order to work in the district and campaign. However, the president has asked that Congress come back to add more funds for FEMA so that we can address some of the storms. So I may have to go back and do that, but that's the job that comes first.
So ella dice que, bueno, ahora mismo están, ¿verdad? Como un receso porque están en campaña y están trabajando en campaña, pero el presidente acaba de llamarlos para atrás, ¿verdad? Porque necesitan más dinero para el programa de FEMA, ¿verdad? Como pueden ver, el huracán que pasó y ellos tienen que apropiarle el dinero para que haga los fondos para ayudar a estas personas. So, Congressman, you've been a strong advocate for improving public education, particularly through the STRIVE Act, which you introduced to provide more resources to teachers' preparation programs. Can you tell us a little bit, where is that at? Did you get it to the finish line?
Well, that was something that I introduced. I mean, we have to address education at every stage of the pipeline, from the physical infrastructure of our schools to providing school lunches for our children so that they're ready to learn. But the piece that people often forget about is teacher preparation and making sure that we have the most qualified people in front of our children. So that's something that I've really done a lot of work on. When we did the American Rescue Plan, one of my pieces of legislation was to save education jobs, to make sure that school nurses, social workers, psychologists were not laid off when schools had budget shortfalls. The STRIVE Act has not gone to the floor yet, but on my committee, I've been a strong advocate of making sure we're strengthening our preparation programs so that people aren't leaving the profession, and that when they get into this field, they are well prepared, they have the resources and the tools that they need to teach our children. I just think back to my time as a teacher and say, what would I have liked to have seen differently?
So, ella está hablando un poquito, ¿verdad?, de las cosas que hay que trabajar. Yo le pregunté sobre, ella ha sido una educadora y ella propone mucha legislación para mejorar el sistema educativo, ¿verdad? Y el STRIVE fue un programa, una legislación que ella introdujo para proveer programas y servicios a los maestros para que sean mejores educadores. Ella está hablando que hay varias cosas que hay que hablar y atender, como es lo que es la estructura física de los edificios, para mejorar la calidad de eso. Cuando está hablando del American Rescue Plan, el propósito de ella de ahí trabajar fue para asegurarse que las enfermeras, maestros, que esas personas no le dieran layoff, se quedaran mantenidas trabajando. Y ella sigue trabajando en esas áreas para ayudar, aunque el programa no ha salido hacia adelante, pero es algo que ella está proponiendo.
Bien, en la recta final ya de las elecciones que están ahí próximas dentro, la última elección ella la ganó por un estrecho margen de voto, pero bastante estrecho, que es su campaña en el área donde están sus votantes. ¿Qué está haciendo ella para tratar de que su margen de votos esta vez sea superior al de la última vez?
Mm-hmm. So, Congresswoman, in your last re-election campaign, you won, but it was a very tight race for you. What have you done, or what are you doing currently to close that gap, talk to voters, and make sure that you have higher voter participation? Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
So the last election was closer than I was comfortable with. But again, this is the 5th district is a frontline district. We only have about a little over 30% registered Democrats. So you can't win this race without Republicans and independents choosing to vote for you. There was a lot of outside money in this race. And one of the things that I would say that I'm doing differently, when you are running for the first time, my opponent was running for the first time, and I figured that the voters would do their research and look at what I was offering, what he was offering, and then make their choice. So I didn't highlight his record as a state senator. I didn't highlight the work that he had done to say to people, well, wait a minute, he's saying that he would do one thing, but look at what he's already, when he had the chance, he didn't do these things. So in this election, I am making sure to present the contrast so that people can go and look at those votes, can go, they tried to paint me as someone who wanted to defund the police. So in this election, I'm saying, no, look at, these are all of the votes that I've taken to support law enforcement. And this is similarly, my opponent has a voting record. So really just creating the contrast. And I think turning out, making sure that turnout is higher. In a midterm, turnout is generally a little bit depressed. This year, it's a presidential year, turnout generally is higher. So just making sure that people have a voting plan, people know where they vote, people who say they're going to vote are actually showing up. So literally owning the ground, mobilizing, turning people out is just a strategy that is different. But I also will add, people talk a lot about the race in 2022. My opponent who's running against me, he's never won by overwhelming numbers. Both of the times that he did win when he was on the ballot, it was, 100 votes. So I learned a lot of lessons from the last time. So making sure that people have the information, they know the contrast, and that they are turning out to vote.
So, ella está hablando que el Distrito 5 es un distrito bastante importante. Y ella le dice que es el frontline, porque 30% de las personas registradas son demócratas. O tú no puedes ganar ese distrito si no tienes el apoyo de los republicanos o de los independientes. Eso es algo muy importante que hacer. Ella dice que ella lo que está haciendo diferente la última vez, porque ella dice, yo no gané, pero fue bastante cerca, y eso yo no estaba cómoda con esos números. Y lo que estoy haciendo diferente ahora es que lo que no hice la última vez fue hablar sobre el récord del individuo, ¿verdad? A mí me hicieron como que yo quería quitarle los fondos al departamento de policía, pero eso no es verdad. Yo le estoy mostrándole al público mi récord. Yo estoy apoyando. So, es más, ahora es asegurar de que se habla de lo que ella ha hecho, mirar lo que él ha hecho para que la gente compare. Esa es la diferencia. Y ella dice que trabajar para sacar el voto a votar, darle más información a las personas para que a lo mejor tengan mejor conocimiento. Y cuando hablamos en el 2022, que miramos a su oponente, ese oponente no sacaba los números para él ganar en sus propias campañas tan alto como es.
Bien, ¿y cuáles han sido sus prioridades en el trabajo del Congreso para la ciudad de Waterbury?
¿Para la ciudad o para el distrito?
O para el distrito.
So, Congresswoman, as an elected official, what has been your strategy to bring resources to your district? What policies have you been working on? If you can talk a little bit about that.
So I have a record of bringing resources to the district that I'm extremely proud of. I just started running an ad that shows I've had 11 bills signed into law since I've been in Congress. But when you're talking about actual resources on the ground, there's so many different things. I mean, for big Democrat policies, things like the infrastructure bill that brought $5 billion in infrastructure funding to Connecticut. In the Inflation Reduction Act, we have money for water infrastructure, for broadband, for things like that, which everyone in the state is will benefit from, lowering the cost of prescription drugs that our seniors are benefiting from right now. But when you talk about things that I've done specifically, we have reintroduced community projects to Congress, where members of Congress can direct funding right to specific things in their district. I bought $1 million to the city of New Britain for water infrastructure, to Goshen for water infrastructure, to Plymouth to help modernize their water treatment facility. I've bought over $10 million to our local police departments in Watertown, Brookfield, New Fairfield, the police athletic leagues in Waterbury and New Britain, $1 million for one-to-one laptops for students in the Waterbury public schools. I mean, the list goes on and on. Money to clean up brownfields. We brought Superfund money back to clean up these brownfields all around the state. Something that I'm particularly proud of that doesn't happen often is that I've gotten protected both the Farmington, 40 miles on the Farmington River and 41 miles on the Housatonic River through wild and scenic designations. Those environmental impacts are very important to the people in this district. And I think this kind of dovetails with the last question that you asked. One of the things that I am doing differently than I did last time, I'm not taking for granted that people know about all of these wins. You know, I didn't want to sound like I was bragging or touting, you know, just doing my job or helping people in the community. But now I realize that not everybody is aware of that. So I have to make sure that people know about all these wins. And outside of those monetary things, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is our constituent services. The number of people that we've helped get their veterans benefits, their Social Security benefits, people get their military medals back, helping people with immigration issues or get passports. People who never interacted with their congressional office, we're able to not only reach out to them, but help them solve their problems. And that's something, you know, before I was in Congress, I didn't know that my congressperson could help me with all those things. So I think just the idea of pointing to the things I've brought back to the community, but also helping people to understand, I work for you. So I'm here if you need something. And that has really caught on because the number of people that have reached out to our office has increased every year. And we've been able to bring more than $33 million back in casework refunds to people who had money tied up in the IRS, people who didn't get their Social Security or their veterans benefits. $33 million brought back to them through my office. So I just have to make sure people know about these things. So that is what I am really trying to do, to highlight and amplify those successes.
So ella está hablando de lo que ella ha trabajado. So ella ha trabajado en 11 leyes que han sido firmadas, en 11 propuestas de leyes que han sido firmadas a leyes. Ella habla un poquito del Infrastructure Bill, que eso trajo fondos, ¿verdad?, para las comunidades, para bregar con la situación del agua, para trabajar con expandir lo que se llama el broadband, bajar la prescripción de las drogas, ¿verdad?, para que sean más económicas, y trabajar en diferentes proyectos para traer más fondos. Lo que ella dice que en el pasado no ha hecho es hablar de lo que ella ha traído hacia el distrito. Y eso es lo que ella se está enfocando más ahora, como ella trajo $1 millón para New Britain, para trabajar en la infraestructura del agua, 10 millones para el departamento de policía, donde también se están arreglando ciertos departamentos como en Brookfield, $1 millón que se trajo para darle computadora a los niños en Brookfield. Esas son cosas que ella dice que está trabajando y en asuntos que tienen que ver con el ambiente, ¿verdad? Dinero para trabajar y tener un impacto positivo en el ambiente. Pero también su oficina está viendo un incremento de personas que están llamando para servicio, ayudando a los veteranos con sus beneficios, los beneficios del seguro social, asuntos de inmigración. Ella quiere asegurarse que la comunidad sepa que ella está trabajando para su comunidad, que she's working for you, tu comunidad. Y eso es lo que ella dice. Mi trabajo es que ustedes sepan que yo estoy trabajando para ustedes y esto es lo que yo estoy haciendo actualmente para asegurarme de que ustedes reciban los servicios necesarios.
Bien, ¿cuál es la posición de ella con relación a los asuntos de migración que se están debatiendo precisamente hoy día en la campaña? Ambos partidos, demócratas y republicanos, cada uno tiene un discurso diferente. ¿Cuál es la posición de ella como congresista en el Congreso con relación a los inmigrantes?
The Congresswoman, there has been a national debate on immigration. What has been your stance in Congress when it relates to immigration reform? If you can talk to us a little bit about that.
So we absolutely need immigration reform. But I don't think that this idea of fear-mongering is the way we address that. What people don't understand is that when you see people present themselves at the border for asylum seekers, they are following U.S. law. That's what our law says. So if we don't want that to happen, then we need to change the law. We had a bipartisan immigration bill that was rejected. I mean, we worked on it. It would have increased the number of Border Patrol agents. It would have increased the number of court officers so that we can process these cases quicker, so that people are within 6 months will know if they qualify for asylum, and it wouldn't be taking 6 years. I think that we need immigration reform, but it has to be humane. We have a backlog. You know, how do we address dreamers who don't know any other country but this country? So I am in favor of immigration reform, but it has to be humane. I mean, we are a country of immigrants. I have a district that has, farm workers where people come for seasonal visas, but they don't want citizenship. They just want to work and go back home. They want to be able to predict that. I've had the hospitals reach out to me where they need help because they can't, in their medical programs, they can't get enough visas for their doctors who are training from other countries. So we have to look at all of those things. My office currently has about 170 open immigration cases where we've tried to expedite or get some resolution to people who have been waiting sometimes decades just for a court hearing. So there is a problem, but this idea that every immigrant is a criminal or the cause of all the problems in our country is dangerous, and it's wrong. And I just don't agree with that. So I am open for meaningful discussion and meaningful debate about immigration and what that looks like. But what is being presented right now is dangerous. We just saw this week where former President Donald Trump is saying that literally wants to have mass deportations of people who are here legally, wants to eliminate birthright citizenship. Those are dangerous proposals. So yes, I agree that we have to address our immigration system, but how we do that has to be measured, it has to be tempered, and it has to be humane.
So ella está hablando de que ella sí apoya una reforma migratoria. Ella dice específicamente cuando tú vienes a las personas que están buscando asilo, ¿verdad? Que vienen a la frontera buscando asilo, ellos están siguiendo la ley. Entonces tenemos que trabajar en estas áreas. Dice que no es tan fácil, pero un bill partidista de una reforma migratoria que no siguió hacia adelante, donde ponían más oficiales en las fronteras, ponían más personal en las cortes, ¿verdad? Porque hay estos casos de inmigración que se tardan años, no se están moviendo porque hay falta de personal. Y ella dice que tiene que ser humane, algo humano, cómo se trata la situación. Pero ella dice, en mi distrito yo tengo personas que trabajan en las fincas, ¿verdad? Que tienen visas sesionales. Esta gente lo que quieren volver para sus casas. Ellos no quieren quedarse, quieren venir a trabajar y se van. Ella dice que hay un hospital que la llamó ella directamente porque tienen problemas consiguiendo doctores y no tienen el proceso de facilitar las visas a estos doctores para que vengan acá. Estos son uno de los asuntos que ella dice que son importantes y tratar. Ella dice que la oficina de ella ahora mismo está trabajando sobre 170 casos de migración, ¿entiende? Y ayudar a estas comunidades a resolver esos problemas. ella dice también de que el presidente, el presidente de antes, Donald Trump, que está hablando de hacer deportaciones masivas, quitarle los derechos de las personas que tienen padres que son inmigrantes, pero tienen la ciudadanía, quitarle esa ciudadanía a esta persona. Y dice, eso no es la forma donde nosotros tenemos que ir. Tenemos que hacer esto de una manera humana para ayudar. Yeah. So, Congresswoman, what is your current platform? What are you saying to your current voters right now? When you're going door to door, what is it that you're hearing them? What is the need of the 5th Congressional District? What are you hearing? I know there's worry about probably inflation. Affordable housing has been a key issue, right? In our communities. Can you talk a little bit, what is it that you're hearing, and what would be your response to address some of the concerns within the 5th District?
So the 5th district is, I don't think people realize how big, it's 41 towns. So I have suburbs in the Farmington Valley. I have the inner city. I have rural farming communities. So people have different needs, but there are some through lines. Inflation and cost of living is always a through line. Some of the things that I've done, housing, 36% of people's income goes to housing. So we really have to address affordable housing in this district. I support the Vice President's plan to construct 3 million affordable housing units across the country, getting our carpenters, electricians, plumbers back to work, and really opening up housing markets, giving families incentives for purchasing homes. Some of the first-time home buyers, all of those things. I support that. Raising the minimum wage, something that I've voted for time and again at the federal level, because that's where I'm at the federal level, not the state level, but making sure people's earnings are keeping up with their costs of living. Things like childcare, which people don't think about as part of inflation, but if you don't have someone to care for your kids, you can't go to work. And again, looking at price gouging we're talking about the cost of food and all of these things. These companies are still making record profits. So a lot of this is price gouging. So really looking at what that means and making sure, that the wealthiest pay their fair share. There's no reason why teachers, firefighters, police officers, blue-collar workers should be paying more in taxes than billionaires. So really looking at all of these things and continuing to bring down the cost of healthcare, which is one of the biggest things that people go into debt behind. And for me, I want to make sure that this looks the same across the entire district. I think for too long, policies have been geared towards the voters that turn out all the time, the wealthiest, the most educated, the people with the most influence. I work for everyone, so I want to make sure we can lift people out of poverty. The child tax credit lifted 50% of children out of poverty. We need to make that permanent. So if that families have a chance, apprenticeship and job training programs. I'm really focused on a government and an economy that builds the middle class, that allows more people to enter the middle class and be self-sufficient, to get jobs where they can take care of their family. And that requires some difficult decisions. We see now that the investments that we made after the pandemic have resulted in record unemployment. We are recovering faster than any other economy in the world. And these are decisions that are not bold. To me, they're just basic. We need to, take care of our people and help them stand on their own 2 feet, get back into the workforce. And that's something that I'm willing to do. It's something that I've always done as the Congresswoman. And I know that my approach is a little different, but I don't want to leave anybody behind. I think just because a person fell on hard times or is down on their luck, we should not skip over those people. We should create opportunities for them to, get back on their feet, get a good paying job, go through some job training programs, reenter society and be productive citizens. And that's That's the story of my life. So I want that for everyone. And that's something I'm going to continue to fight for. And I know in a district like this, it's really easy to focus on the people who have the most influence, but I'm not willing to do that exclusively. I am everybody's congresswoman, and that has always been my approach, and it's something that I'm going to continue to do.
So ella está hablando que ella representa 41 pueblos en ese distrito, que son bastantes, 41, ¿verdad? Que incluye los suburbios, incluye las ciudades grandes, sí, son bastantes. Entonces ella dice, sí, los asuntos de la inflación son los asuntos que está oyendo en la campaña, donde hay una preocupación de la comunidad, ¿verdad? El costo de vida que está tan caro. Casi el 36% del ingreso de las personas van para pagar renta, las cosas de las casas. Las personas tienen dificultades. Ella sí está a favor de la propuesta de la vicepresidenta de crear 3 millones de viviendas asequibles en nuestras comunidades. Ella apoya eso, ayudar a los primeros compradores de casa, ¿verdad? Subir el salario mínimo para que las personas, ¿verdad?, tengan mejor calidad de vida, se puedan levantar por sí mismos. Asegurarse que el programa de cuidado de niños, que estén los fondos necesarios para que las familias se puedan ir tranquilamente a trabajar, sabiendo que esos niños se están atendiendo de manera adecuada. El costo de la comida, que los precios se han subido drásticamente, eso está impactando mucho en las comunidades, ¿verdad? Que los ricos paguen lo que es necesario, que no solamente sea la clase media que está pagando todo, sino que los ricos también paguen lo que es necesario. El costo de salud, del programa de salud que crece todos los años drásticamente. Esas son una de las cosas que la congresista quiere trabajar. Cosas positivas como el tax credit de niños, ¿verdad? Donde la familia reclaman dinero por los niños, que ese programa sea permanente, ¿verdad? El programa de apprenticeship para trabajadores, para que nuestra comunidad, ¿verdad?, tenga las destrezas necesarias para conseguir estos trabajos. Y cómo crecemos esa clase media. Ese es el trabajo. Y ella dice, después de la pandemia, ¿verdad?, que mucha gente perdieron los trabajos, el número de desempleados fue bastante alto, eso se está recuperando en esa área. Ella dice, nosotros tenemos que proteger a la comunidad, trabajar con la comunidad. Vamos a dejar nadie atrás. They're not going to leave no one behind. Y crear oportunidades. Dice, yo soy la congresista de todo el mundo y esa es mi labor.
Oh, nice. Bien. Hemos llegado al final del programa.
So quickly. Congress, we just reached at the end of our segment. Went very fast. We want to take the opportunity to thank you for being on the show, addressing our questions so that our listeners can have a better understanding of who you are, that you're the people's congresswoman. Any last words to the constituency of the district that you want to leave with us?
So I thank you for your time, but I'm looking at all of the screens, and I do see that there was a question about youth crime and restorative justice. Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind, can
Please
I just address
proceed.
that really
Definitely.
quickly?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I'm a teacher, and I believe in young people. I believe in the promise and their potential. And I think we have a responsibility so it's twofold. We have to address crime and hold people accountable for crimes. But what does that look like? When we have young people, I think we have to get involved sooner before they get into trouble. We have to make sure that they're on the right track and they have mentors and we have programs to keep them out of trouble. I don't believe we throw people away at age 17. It is easier. I think Frederick Douglass was the one who said, it is easier to build strong boys than fix broken men. So we have to do our part. And I am someone and that's really the way I legislate, to make sure that when people have to make that choice, when young kids have to make that choice, no matter what kind of family they come from, no matter what kind of neighborhood they come from, we're saying there are opportunities out there that are different. I have introduced legislation for wraparound services for mental health in school for young people. I have legislation, Youth Build for America, to get these kids who are about to drop out of school or who don't have credits into job training or construction programs. Because just because a kid isn't good in school doesn't mean that they can't work or give back to their community. So really catching them before they even get into these situations. I believe in people. I believe in people. And I have grown up around too many people, you know, from growing up in public housing to literally working multiple jobs my entire life. I've grown up around too many people who kind of fell through the cracks and were thrown away by society. And I just think that we have to do better. We have to help people stand on their feet. And that's what I bring to this work. Very different. I have a different background, a different perspective than my colleagues because I've lived it. I've experienced it. And I'm amongst these people every day. I still talk to them. Good people, you know, from good families who just need a break. They need a shot. So that's what I am going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to fight for those people who don't have a voice, who feel like government doesn't work for them and it's not listening, but also stabilize, you know, the people who have been able to start a small business and just want it to be fair and equitable, you know, working for those people as well. And that's what we have to do. We need representatives who see the whole picture and really work on behalf of everybody. And I think that's what I've tried to do. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And I hope that people will do their research and look at the contrast and what is being presented by both sides and vote accordingly, because none of this matters if people don't vote. You know, November 5th, we have early voting for the first time in Connecticut, starting October 21st. And I really hope people do their research and look at what is at stake. I think that people have an idea of what I will do because they can look at what I have done. And I just know that, I just hope that people will turn out and vote this year so that they can be a part of any conversation moving forward.
So ella dice que ella como maestra, ¿verdad? Ella ha sido una maestra y ella, su trabajo y su compromiso es trabajar con esta juventud. Y también que sean personas justas. Estos jóvenes, ¿verdad? Ayudarlos antes de que se metan en problemas, trabajándolo con diferentes programas, que se envuelvan en diferentes programas, que hagan mentores. Ella no cree que las personas no tienen la manera de cómo ayudarse. Es proveyéndoles los recursos a las manos a ellos para que ellos cambien sus vidas. Hay un dicho de un señor apellido Douglas que ella dice, es mejor arreglar a los jóvenes ahora que arreglar un hombre que ya está roto. So, es trabajar con ellos tempranamente, ¿verdad? Para hacer el impacto y el cambio. Ella dice que ella ha creado oportunidades creando programas, lo que llaman wraparound services, servicios para estos jóvenes, ¿verdad? En diferentes áreas para ayudarlos y las familias. Ella ha trabajado para eso, crear trabajo de entrenamiento para nuestros jóvenes, como trabajo de construcción, ¿verdad? Porque ella dice, en mi vida, yo sé lo que es trabajar, yo he trabajado hasta 2 trabajos, ¿verdad? Para sostener mi familia. Yo he estado en la comunidad donde veo las personas que se asocian a mí, que también han trabajado 2 trabajos. So, ella entiende la comunidad. Asegurar de que hagan más fondos, ¿verdad? Públicos para trabajo, para remover a la comunidad. Y ella dice, su responsabilidad es trabajar para el pueblo y asegurarte también que los pequeños negocios tengan oportunidades que sean justos y equitables. La contradice dice, en contraste, ella quiere que la miren en su récord y miren el récord del otro y que las personas salgan a votar, ¿verdad? Que ellos vean la labor que ella está haciendo y cómo ella está trabajando por su comunidad. Y ese es el mensaje que ella le está dejando a la comunidad, que asegurarse que salgan y voten, hagan sus estudios y que salgan a apoyar.
Bien. Gracias, congresista, por su participación en el programa, ¿no?
See, thank you, Congresswoman, for being with us today. We wish you lots of luck.
Senator, you do a terrific job. You're asking the questions, doing the translation, writing it down.
A little bit of everything, right? Because you want to try to capture everything that you're saying.
Yeah, you're like on it.
Muchos éxito el 5 de noviembre.
She says, we wish you a lot of success on election day.
Thank you.
So good luck.
I mean, like I said, I'm a teacher. That's who I am in my core. And I just want to help people. This isn't about an elected position. I want to be the congresswoman that I needed someone to be for me. I want to, fight for people who don't have a voice in the way that I needed someone to do that for me. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and all the best to you as well.
Same. Ella dice que ella quiere ser la congresista donde responda al pueblo, no como las situaciones que ella pasó, que estaba buscando respuesta y no las conseguía. Pero ella es la congresista que va a dar respuesta al pueblo.
Del pueblo.
Exactamente. Thank you so much.
You didn't even have to write that one down.
Not at all. Well, thank you so much, and we wish you success.
Thank you.
Take care. Bueno, Abelardo, hemos arribado al final de este programa, muy interesante.
Sí, muy interesante.
Oímos del jefe de la policía de New Haven, ¿verdad? Donde
los planes y estrategias
que tiene, ¿verdad? Para mejorar la criminalidad en nuestros vecindarios, aunque
para
se escucha
combatir la criminalidad.
Combatir, exacto. Y estamos viendo, ¿verdad, Abelardo, que tú oyes estos incidentes, ¿verdad?, que están pasando, donde los otros días un joven perdió la vida, ¿verdad?, en el vecindario de Fairhaven. Estamos viendo todas estas cosas, pero si tú miras las estadísticas, la criminalidad ha bajado bastante, aunque están estos incidentes, pero se ha bajado un poco. Y por lo menos el jefe estaba hablando de las estrategias, ¿verdad?, de traer más oficiales al departamento de policía, porque yo creo que eso es una parte muy crítica, que hagan oficiales suficientes para asegurar que nuestros vecindarios pues tengan los oficiales necesarios para atender las necesidades de esos vecindarios y la comunidad.
La percepción que es importante
Sí.
es de que la criminalidad está a la orden del día y realmente lo que él dijo es cierto, se ha bajado. Se ha bajado, exacto. Y eso es una realidad. Que se elimine la criminalidad totalmente, eso no lo veo pasar. Vamos a ser realistas, ¿verdad? Pero sí se puede controlar, y las medidas que está tomando. Control, reducción de la criminalidad.
Exacto. Y el programa ese de Community Policing ayuda bastante, ¿verdad? A asegurar de que los policías conecten directo con la comunidad, que creen relaciones con comunidad, porque cuando eso pasa, pues la comunidad son los que son, como diría yo, los subpolicías, porque están informando al policía, mira, esto está pasando en mi comunidad y estas son las personas que lo están haciendo. Cuando eso pasa, vemos que nuestras comunidades mejoran, y eso es importante. Y hablando un poquito de la congresista, vemos que tiene una buena plataforma, ¿verdad? Como maestra, ella entiende la necesidad de los estudiantes, ¿verdad? Y ella como congresista.
Y ella viene de ahí, de la comunidad.
De la comunidad. Y eso es importante, ¿verdad? Porque ella ha trabajado para poner servicio a la comunidad, a nuestros jóvenes. Tiene una posición positiva cuando viene de forma migratoria, ¿verdad? Que siempre hemos estado hablando en este show que necesitamos una reforma migratoria, ¿verdad? Porque tenemos un problema en la nación que no se está trabajando. Vamos a buscar una solución a nuestras hermanos inmigrantes. Creo que la posición de ella en esas áreas es muy importante, pero más que me gustó de ella fue su humildad, ¿verdad? Vi eso en ella, una humildad de decirle al pueblo, mira, yo sé lo que tú estás pasando, yo tuve que trabajar 2 trabajos, ¿verdad?, para sobrevivir. Yo sé lo que tú estás pasando y yo quiero ser tu congresista. Yo creo que eso es un mensaje muy importante que le llega a las personas.
Y la humildad de ella y la humildad que refleja y proyecta es muy importante, que algo que hay que tomar en cuenta.
Exacto. Y cuando tú miras las estrategias como quiere traer viviendas más asequibles, que ella apoya la propuesta de la vicepresidenta, ¿verdad?, de traer crear 3 millones de viviendas en la nación completa, porque hay una escasez de viviendas asequibles en nuestras comunidades. Nosotros lo vemos en New Haven, también lo vemos en el estado de Connecticut completamente, y esos son cosas o recursos que hay que traer a nuestros estados, ¿verdad?, para asegurar que la comunidad, cuando tú tienes una vivienda que es asequible, tú puedes invertir tu dinero en otras áreas y eso levanta la comunidad, levanta la familia y eso es lo que necesitamos y ella, basado en lo que ella está hablando, está proponiendo esto. So, vamos a ver qué va a pasar, ¿verdad? En las elecciones, pero vemos su posición. También nosotros le hicimos una invitación desafortunada al candidato contrario, ¿verdad? Porque somos justos en este programa y ellos rechazaron no venir, hay que tengo que decirlo, esa es la verdad. Y entiendo que es que están ocupados, pero siempre se puede sacar 5 minutos para venir al programa, ¿verdad? Las puertas todavía están abiertas. Bueno, lo dejo con eso.
Bien. Señores, recuerden que este programa se transmite a través de la WNHH 103.5 FM, La Voz Hispana Radio, Facebook, YouTube e Instagram, y está auspiciado por
New Haven Health. Bueno, mi gente, se les quiere de gratis. Sigan mandando sus ideas como siempre están haciéndolo, ¿verdad? Para así nosotros traer los tópicos que a ustedes les interesan. Este show es de ustedes. Nosotros lo hacemos para ustedes, para informarles. Si tienen más ideas, sigan escribiéndonos, ¿verdad? Sigan colaborando con nosotros. Nosotros somos la estación de radio del pueblo. Y los dejamos con esa. Bueno, que tengan un buen fin de semana.
Gracias.